Hi, I'm Jeremy, co-founder and CTO of the United Manufacturing Hub, and today we're privileged to have Jacques Engländer from the Industrie 4.0 Maturity Center in Aachen, Germany with us. We will delve into the heart of the German manufacturing industry and gain insight from the scientific community. Hi, Jacques.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to see you.
So, maybe to kick things off on a lighter note, what is it that you do enjoy in your free time?
That's a good question, but basically it's spending time with my son. He is almost 2 years now, and that's for us it's a really nice time with our family. So we have a big patchwork family, basically lots of children around, and it's always nice to see them evolving. And so this basically the best thing currently. But besides that, the more formal answers, is like hiking on vacation. And besides that, I used to rebuild motorcycles
Nice.
on my own, but actually I don't drive motorcycle anymore, at least for some time now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, nice. So maybe to go into more the professional area, I looked you up and you spent really a lot of time in the, let's call German scientific realm, the RWTH, and you consulted numerous companies. I think you have already a lot of stories to share. Could you maybe share one story that you think would be interesting?
Before I deep dive in the specific story, from my perspective and from my learnings is that it's the customers and the companies we are working with are sometimes in somehow the same, but they always have different kind of requirements and different kind of problems. And the story I would like to bring here is from a heavy equipment manufacturer. It was really like the best story I could tell because everything got into one project here. So the manufacturer was like German Mittelstand, so mid to big company here in Germany. Several factory sites around Europe and around the globe. And they decided to build a new factory, so-called smart factory. So they really wanted to do a good job from the very first beginning, right? Because when we always talk about architectural development and IoT architectures, it's always about legacy integration and how to get old things done, right? The old machinery on the shop floor, the old IT systems and so on. So they really focused on doing things right from the very first beginning. And I say it like it's quite normal to do it like this way, but it's really hard to push that strategic decision throughout the project. And it was really nice to see that everything was meant to be taken into account, right? We had the business pillars, the business objectives regarding this new factory when it comes to, which technology is there, which production technology, what are on a global level, the production network itself, what will be produced on this side and so on. But of course, on the other side, we have this kind of IT perspective. We will have a modern IT architecture. We will be open in the future, right? Not to make the same mistakes we did like 20 years ago, so that we are tied up and really, how to say this? They are not able right now to change their mind, to change their behavior, because everything is rigid and they can't do anything in changes, right? Everything is really expensive when they do want to change it. Of course, companies take a lot of money to do changes on the system and so on. So they really said, we want to have this opportunity to change our mind in the future. And in total, it was a quite big project. We started at the really first beginning when it comes to ideation, the vision of the future IoT architecture, and then derived, let's say, a project path from the visioning to some scenarios we derived, to specific vendor and system selection, and to the implementation phase afterwards. And it was a really nice project for me to see from the very first beginning to the implementation. At the implementation phase, I left the project due to a change in my job, but nevertheless, I'm still in contact with them. And it's really nice to see that it worked out, right? So, I mean, of course, during the project, like always, some assumptions and some requirements changed. You need to be flexible. I know this is nothing new, but nevertheless, the very first pillars to the project we set, they are still really nice working. So I think this was the most meaningful project to me in my time.
Was it more strategic, the goals for the company, or was it more like, okay, let's build a new factory, but let's improve the quality by X%? Or what was the original goal of it?
Let's say it was the combination. I mean, the business decision to build the new factory was to gain more capacity, basically, to be more flexible on the market, to better address the customer needs and so on. But besides this, when it comes to the IT strategy, let's say, or the digitalization strategy, it was exactly this open, formalized strategy to be more flexible in the future. Of course, to save some money due to expensive challenges when it comes to adjustment, actually. But nevertheless, it was more like the overall thinking that let's do it right now. So this was basically the one sentence during the whole project. But from that perspective, the customer and the company we work with was quite open for whatever technology or for whatever approach we suggest them, right? So it was kind of strategic decision, of course, at the very first beginning. But during the project, it definitely come to some specific questions when it comes to technology or system integrator and so on.
And would you say, is this typical for the companies that you consult with? So it's, or maybe you explain it to the audience. What is it? This kind of double role. So you seem to be very close with the scientific community, and you're also quite close with consulting companies. So maybe explain how it works, and then we can deep dive into both of these worlds.
Yeah. I mean, it works quite nice, but of course it's not that easy to distinguish at some point. So the company I work for was a research institute from the RWTH Aachen. So basically, we did a lot of research projects there. We had a lot of training and certification courses and so on. We all do our PhD there. So it's basically the research perspective. But the other main pillar from this institute was consultancy, right? So as you said before, we had this kind of double role. And just to retell the business story, the business model of the institute, from a research perspective, you get insights which are, let's say, 5 to 10 years ahead of the market, right? Because it needs to evolve and so on. But you can, of course, use these insights to bring into the consultancy projects. And on the other hand, you have your consultancy projects where you gain a lot of hands-on practice insights, which can then be, again, pushed in the research cycle. So it's basically really nice to have the combination of both. I mean, of course, you always have a different objective when it comes to research. It's not that money focused, right? It's more like on the result. On the other side, the consultancy project, it's more about saving money during the project, but also have a nice result. But this is basically the way we work at the institute.
And what are some of the trends that you see more coming from the scientific side, where you say, hey, 5 to 10 years ahead of the market? What's currently going on there?
Yeah. I would say the research perspective is more technology and use case driven at the moment. So, for example, we talk a lot about AI. We talk a lot about process automation and this kind of stuff. Digitalization in general, when it comes to more specific technologies, we will talk about some later, I think, OPC UA, Basyx Foundation, and so on. And the other side, what we also see in the research is that there is a lack of, let's say, in managing capabilities. To when it comes to the question, okay, how to integrate those technologies, how to select them, how to manage them over time, and how do these technologies fit in a wider and a more open ecosystem. So to sum up, on the one side, we see a lot of trends when it comes to technologies, specific things, and so on. But how to manage them is not really a topic in our research, at least like 3 to 4 years ago. And this is something very interesting, and this is as well something which, because of our business model, was working quite well, because you can, let's say, switch the perspective all over the time. But yeah, this is basically, from my perspective, this is a big problem, because when we look at our customers and our partners, it from our perspective, it always comes to the managing capability, how to manage all the technologies and how to manage the digital transformation over time. It's not about a specific technology. You are saying yes. I think, I mean, the sentence is, it's not new. It's not about technology, but nevertheless, it's a big problem from a research perspective.
So you would say in the scientific community, it's a lot of talk about certain smaller type of technologies that, I don't know, like predictive maintenance, how to do it, how to improve it, maybe also what business cases it could provide, but there's not much about like how to get the people on board. I mean, all the science people, they start now using Raspberry Pis. It's kind of a different world, like how to get people on board, how to build up processes. Oh, interesting. And is it then, are these then the typical challenges when you consult companies, that why they come to you and get then consulted, or why do they come to you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to differentiate here between different entry points. We as well do consultancies when it comes to specific questions. How do I integrate my ME system? How can I improve my predictive maintenance capabilities, and so on? But the overall problem and challenge is to, let's say, to balance the local perspective from the factories and the global perspective from the headquarters. Because the historically seen, the sites are quite autonomously working, right? They're doing their first mock-ups, they're doing their first pilots, and so on. Maybe it's working, and then they have some communication between those sites. But to transform and to transport or to scale this specific use case from one side to the other, that's the challenge, right? And therefore, of course, the headquarters have different, let's say, objectives in mind. They want to have standards. They want to have standardized data models and standardized use cases. But of course, this perspective is not working as well either, because you need to make smaller adjustments. You need to have the local perspective and the local mind, right? And this is, let's say, the main challenge when we see and when we consult companies, which I would describe as innovative, because we see that digitalization and Industry 4.0 is taking place in these companies, but basically sometimes a bit too much top down and sometimes a bit too much bottom up. And we, let's say, try to find together with these companies the right balance.
So to summarize, each factory is quite independent, and this also fits my experience. Like maybe each site has their own MES system or whatever, because they're responsible in the end for it. And now maybe they have a successful case. And what's now difficult about digitalization, Industry 4.0, etc., is to actually like roll it out, because every company inside is so different. How can one now put it all together? And this is then where companies come to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we see both sides, right? Sometimes we have basically we have bigger companies with, let's say, plus 20 sites or even more. We have customers that have 100, 150 sites across the globe. And we see both. We see the companies where the factories are really independent. As you said before, they have their own MES, they have their own processes, their own digitalization strategy at some time. But on the other hand, we see companies which are really trying to bring the top-down approach towards the factories. And you need to find the balance, because in both perspectives some benefits, but not if you are too extreme in one direction. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the scientific part and why companies would come to you. What are some of the trends that come more from the corporate side, maybe in the sense of technology, also like process or people? What is something that currently interests them the most?
I would say maybe it's standards and data models. Because let's say the trends you have to distinguish here again. Of course, there are lots of technology things going on with AI, machine learning. Every company nowadays says, okay, we need to push AI into our production, and then it's working better. Yeah. Of course, it don't. Yeah, but it doesn't. But nevertheless, on the other side, we talk about a lot with the headquarters, and they seem to be a bit. They need more the tools and methods at hand to be able to talk better with the sites, right? In the name of standard or standardized data models and so on. So in every interview or every first discussion we have with our customers, it's always about standards, data models, some specific technologies, right? Which as well we had before is about scaling use cases and scaling digital transformation in general. Because, I mean, more than 10 years now, we're talking about the topic Industry 4.0. But if you ask some companies, where's the big benefit? Do we have a big benefit? They always say, no, not really. It's really hard to scale the use cases and so on. And this is basically from a company perspective, a big problem and a big challenge right now.
When we previously talked with each other, you mentioned the topic of unified namespace. And I was, to be honest, quite surprised, because normally people especially the German scientific community, they're really going all in for OPC UA, Basyx, asset administration shells, etc. So what brought you to the topic of unified namespace?
Research. So literature research, basically, or some kind of Google research, but some time ago, right? I mean, as you said before, I think we in Germany, I do not have that much experience in other markets, to be honest, but of course I see some trends there. And the German market and the German research, you can really see that it's a German mindset, with a lot of standards, with a lot of bureaucracy, and this kind of blown up projects to find the one solution, right? And I think this is the main problem here, because you can't find one solution for the most suitable IIoT architecture around the world. Every company is quite different. So of course, the approach for some of the projects you have made before, Basyx and OPC UA, is to be flexible, sure, but I would say on a lower level when we compare it to the unified namespace approach. Unified namespace approach. Sorry. Because when we look at the classical integration pyramid, then we have in Germany the focus is really on the process automation level, where in the past there was a lot of process automation. Here in Germany we have big companies, of course, and this is somehow the focus. But what's not that much the focus, I mean, of course, we're talking about this, but what is not that much in the focus is the business perspective, our business goals, my business structure, and so on. And therefore, we see that all these big projects, Basyx, for example, is not that well suited, or is not really the benefit we are searching for when it comes to a digitalization on the company-wide level. Yeah, there the unified namespace came across, let's say, my mind, and it's really nice to see that it's more like a concept. It's more like a concept than a technology, and the fundamental pillars, let's say, what are defining the UNS. Are way better addressing the company's challenges that the German projects do, and the German approaches. Why? I don't know. Maybe because we have our process automation perspective. But yeah, from my point of view, what a flexible, open, and modern IT architecture needs to have to be beneficial in companies, that's basically what the UNS is representing. Yeah.
And maybe in your own words, what do you understand? Because you said it's a concept, and I found like really a lot of interpretations of it. What is, in your opinion, what does unified namespace mean? Or what are the concepts of the unified namespace that you heard that you think are the most relevant, also in comparison to the typical German automation, process automation standards and tools and techniques there?
I mean, as you said before, there are a lot of different opinions, let's say, from the UNS, and understandings from the UNS, and I think somehow that's okay, because that's okay to have different understandings of a concept like this one, but I think you can narrow it down to 3 or 4 main pillars, right? And there are a lot of nice explanation videos around which try to make it way better than I can do. But nevertheless, nowadays, it's a really hard problem for companies to get data, to know where the data is. We have siloed systems, we have siloed environments, and so on. So the single source of truth we are talking about, that's really hard to realize for lots of the companies we are talking with. Because what, of course, this does not mean is that you have one single data, whatever, data warehouse, data lake, or data sink, where all my data is in. This is not a good approach at all, because every system has its own data model. There is a good reason why the data close to some machines, close to some systems, is stored in the systems or system environment. But nevertheless, due to Industry 4.0, of course, you want to use the data from other systems. So you need to realize at least a single source of truth concept and environment to make this happen. And this is one pillar of the unified namespace to realize those single source of truth, right? And again, it's not a technology. It's not a database or whatever, but basically I always have a address book in mind, right? Where I can find this data, where can I find this data, and so on. It's more about this, let's say, registered book or whatever, how to find the data. Another thing is, and this is something which is really close to my opinion of modern architectures, is the hub. The main hub, where we have pub/sub subscriber, publish subscriber methodology, right? So you gain a lot of benefit from this, because we say systems are loosely coupled and they are not interconnected directly. Lots of our companies have hundreds, thousands of interfaces between each systems. But of course, for example, if you want to have a new ME system, or just a really small application, you have to rebuild all those interconnections, interfaces. If you have this pub/sub methodology, the system just publish all the information it has to some hub, to a streaming or to a broker platform or whatever. And all the other systems can decide, okay, is this information important to me, right? So there you have, on a more technology perspective, the opportunity to exchange data for the whole company. And not only for a production line, not only for one site, but if you do it like really open and wide, for the whole company. So that the headquarter knows, okay, the machine at site whatever, site 20, is broken because it's a really important machine for the overall production. On the other hand, of course, you don't need to have all the information of one sensor at the global corporate level. No, you don't need it. So you can really nice differentiate between levels of information and the stakeholder or the person at the end of the machine which gets the data. And the other thing, and the last thing is that the unified namespace can easily represent the overall structure of the company. Because what we see in the past, when we have the big monolithic applications or monolithic IoT architectures, you have the ERP system right in the middle, right? Big ERP system, don't touch it. I don't want to change it. It's running. And of course, this represented the companies 30, 20 years ago. But nowadays, you need to have a more flexible approach. And therefore, the unified namespace is really good to structure the company, the whole structure, not only a process automation line again, but the whole structure, and to talk in events when it comes to event-driven architectures. And this, again, is quite different from a process automation level, because when you have a typical server-client approach, you always push data, even if there's no change. Yeah, just the information, I'm still here, I'm still living. Yeah. But of course, what's important is the event, the change, when something happens. For example, when the machine is ready with the specific work, or for example, when you have a big company and you have several sites and they all have one, let's say, manufacturing sites at the end, and all materials come together at this point. It's not important to have every single update. It's just important, okay, my material left the company and will probably be there in 2 weeks or whatever, right? So this event thinking, it's a bit different from what companies do nowadays. It's a more status-oriented, or every information everywhere. What's not really the case here. But if you have a good event approach in your architecture, it really helps you to structure down and to represent your business. And this, at the end, is the main core or the main reason for an IIoT architecture, to represent the business, not to be a nice architecture just to have some fancy technology, but to be able to represent the company with a high extent.
A lot of the more abstract things you said, this is exactly what I heard from people when they talked about like Basyx, OPC UA, etc. Yeah, you have this, and it's a really easy tool to find everything. You also now mentioned the topic of event-driven architecture, and it's only about the events. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that, where you think is the difference there?
I think the difference is basically the perspective of the field of use of these technologies. For example, if you have OPC UA, right? Where's the difference between OPC UA and MQTT? Yeah, that's a big question for a lot of companies. But OPC UA, it's a nice standard. Yeah, it's a nice technology. You can use it quite well for a specific environment. But they said at the very first beginning, we want to make one standard, we want to make one technology, and that fits all. But that's not the case with OPC UA, right? Because when it comes to the transmitting and the performance of lots of events around the company, and we speak about hundreds hundreds of thousands or even millions events per day, then it's not working anymore with OPC UA because it's too slow. It's not specified to this specific use case and so on. But when it comes to, for example, connecting the machines or using the asset administration shell, as a standardized way to connect machines and to talk with the machines around the shop floor, it's really nice. But on the broader level, when it comes to exchange lots of data, there you have MQTT as a nice protocol because it's specialized to this task, right? From the IoT perspective to exchange lots of data. But of course, as it's from the IoT perspective, MQTT does have a few challenges as well when it comes to IIoT, so the industrial Internet of Things, because you have lots of standards, you have lots of different machines using different protocols and so on. So therefore, you need to find the right connector to be able to use MQTT in a more plug and play view, right? And so both technologies have their benefits, pros and cons. But when it comes to the overall architecture, the company architecture, not a solution architecture, but the company architecture, this open approach with MQTT, loose coupled systems, is, from my perspective, the one to go in the future, and not the smaller solution perspective from OPC UA or whatever. And not to get me wrong, I really like the standard. Yeah, it has its use. Yeah, but on the broader scale, I think the event.
For me, it kind of like starts to come all together. Like OPC UA comes very strongly from Germany. It's all about process automation, and it's, I would say, also in my experience, a good standard for process automation. But if you're thinking then about like using for the entire enterprise, it's getting more like an IT topic, and then things start to really add up. Because in my experience, just from an implementation perspective, I've always struggled a little bit with OPC UA, especially with like large data amounts. I like it because it's at least a standard, but for sending really lot of data, and with really lot of data, it's what's normal on an enterprise level. Even if you have a SCADA system, you'll probably not be able to extract more than 10,000 values per second. I mean, this might sound a lot for automation. Why do you need so much? But in enterprise, with something like MQ Kafka, you don't measure how many messages are in there. You measure it per gigabytes per second. So it's just like you have also different amounts on how to measure it. Now to continue, I saw that you posted about Azure adopting one of your frameworks. Maybe you want to explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, our main framework from the company I'm working for right now. The company is Maturity Center, so Industrie 4.0 Maturity Center. And back in 2017, when we were founded, the question was how to measure Industry 4.0. Right? 5 years since the term was originated. So the question back then was how to measure it, on which maturity level is my company. And therefore, we then developed the maturity index, the maturity framework, where you can assess your company and have a status quo of the current picture, right? The current status quo. And from that point on, what we do nowadays, what is our main product, is to consult the companies to say, okay, now you're maybe at level 2.3 or whatever, maybe level 3. What in the next 5 to 10 years, where do you want to come? Which maturity you want to achieve, and so on. Because what is really important to understand in this model, in this framework, is that it's not about getting to maturity level 6 in every aspect, because it's way too expensive. Maybe it's way too much. Let's say overthinked. Level 4 is really nice for a lot of companies we're working with. So just to give you a really quick overview about the levels, the first and the second are more like Industrie 3.0 perspectives and questions. It's about computerization and connectivity. Because from this point on, you have nothing new with Industry 4.0. But then it's about visibility, so that you have the events and you see it, sure, but you don't know what's happening there. That's the stage 4, transparency. You understand what's happening, stage 5, and then you see that the development is quite big here. Is the predictive capability to see, okay, I see my machine 1 or whatever, there's a high temperature. Okay, when will it break? In 1 week, do I need to stop right now? Or is it fine to just maintain it in 1 month, maybe? And the last level is adaptability. So the production itself adapts itself to, again, get the highest production, the highest efficiency and so on. So, but to find the sweet spot on level 4 somehow, it's a big challenge for lots of companies, because we address different topics. We not only address resources and IT systems, which is, let's say, the obvious perspectives here. We also assess organization and culture, because we said this at the very first beginning. It's not only about technology. The company needs to be ready for this change when it comes to change management and culture of acceptance, culture of failure. So we all have the whole company with our framework addressed, and that's quite interesting to see. And here the Azure adopting framework, when it comes, I think it was about cloud technology. They just used our 6 levels there. They adopted a bit, adapted a bit, but nevertheless, it's really nice to see that the framework itself, it's globally known nowadays. We see a lot of adaptations, and that's basically the story behind the Azure LinkedIn post.
I will definitely link it. What should I link in the descriptions? Should I link the LinkedIn or the full article in Azure? What would you prefer?
I think the LinkedIn post would be fine, because there's also a link to the Azure adoption framework. So that would be fine.
Yeah. So I'll link the LinkedIn post of Jacques further in the description, in the show notes, or however where you're watching this, where you can find this. Do you have any questions for me?
Sure. I mean, we had a lot of discussions at the beginning and before this interview. And you from the United Manufacturing Hub, right? You are really close to the topic we spoke about this, and to the overall trend of open architectures and so on. So what would you say about the United Manufacturing Hub is fundamentally different from other solutions nowadays, that you have the benefit and that you have your unique selling point, let's say?
We're a product company, a technology company, but we're not only looking at the technology part. So our vision is to make the worlds of computers and factories one. And you just said it again. It's not only about technology, it's also people and processes. And we provide the missing link, the missing fabric to connect both of these worlds. It's a technology piece, but it strongly helps with people and processes. We do it by giving the engineers the best IT and OT tools, and there it already starts. So we give them the best tools of both worlds into their hands. So we are also thinking about like skill level. We took deliberate decision. Hey, what piece of technology can it be understood by a person? Also thinking about processes. So we are only using like well-established tools like OPC UA, MQTT, Kafka, and for example, in a lot of large enterprises, you could argue about the Kafka part, but a lot of large enterprises, for example, there are already teams in there that know it. So there's a high chance that there might already be processes there that support it. So that when people in manufacturing do something in a transformation, it's not something new. So we bundled all of these tools and we put them into ready to use and easy to install architecture. And this is the data infrastructure. And this is like what we open sourced. And this is also something that really makes us stand out because we're open source. Also, we're additionally ecosystem independent because we've seen a lot of these solutions that are kind of tie always to a certain type of ecosystem, maybe more like Siemens or maybe more like OPC UA or maybe like more IT. There are also some frameworks from IT there. So we're ecosystem independent. We're trying to be the middle ground for that. And then the third one is end to end. So basically, except for a couple of like for fun projects, I've not seen any other companies taking this approach to make the worlds of factories and computers the same. There are a lot of, I think the vision seems to be with IT-OT convergence. It seems to be quite common. But this approach on how to do it, also with the mission, is not something that I've seen. And then why? I mean, it's open source. Like, why would companies then come to us? The business model behind it, it's about the life cycle. So you are a company and you want to use the best tools because you don't want to force like the OT people just to use IT tools and the other way around. So you need all of these building blocks. But to set up everything, I mean, you could hire system integrator, but the real pain lies in maintaining everything. Because if you build everything from scratch up, you are in a big IT infrastructure project and it can get really expensive. So companies come to us because they see we provide them guaranteed life cycle for the data infrastructure. So it doesn't matter what tool you have. We ensure that everything is compatible with each other. Just like a standardized thing, they might not have 100% flexibility, but they get a core infrastructure block that they know will work because we do all the testing, etc. And then additional features around it that helps them in installing it, provisioning, because there comes in, if you install it like on edge devices, there's an entire thing of how to install it, what happens if it breaks, then we come back to the point of processes, that they get a tool, a piece of technology, which they can put into the processes so that they know, okay, if something breaks, who is now responsible? And this is how we're providing a small piece of technology, I would say, into the broader business transformation that helps with the rest. And it's also open source, ecosystem independent, and end to end. And that makes us unique.
Fair. Yeah, cool. I mean, the open approach, let's say the open source approach and the open architecture, the more I get into this topic over the last years, the more arises the questions why it's not always like this, right? Because from my perspective, it's the only way to manage the digital transformation in the future. Yeah.
In IT, it is already this. In IT, it's absolutely normal. So, and what do I mean with IT? Not some small people. It's like what's going on in banking, what's going on at Netflix, Google, especially the infrastructure part. Linux, very good example. It has just one in the server field. So being open for this, an open source infrastructure, it's the standard, and manufacturing is deviating from it. And this is like what we're also trying to bring together.
We are both from Aachen, right? We get to know each other from another perspective, but nevertheless, it's like some 100 meters, which are away where our companies are.
I was always an IT nerd, but then studied mechanical engineering business administration at RWTH Aachen in Germany. For the international audience, it's a very renowned university for mechanical engineering. And I landed up there in the Digital Capability Center in Aachen, and I built it up on a technical perspective. I was there a working student, and I realized that, hey, the knowledge of IT and now the knowledge of what's going on manufacturing is really, really helpful. So put it together. I was responsible there for the technical architecture. And then at one point, so it's a combination between McKinsey and the university. At one point, they decided to bring it also to the clients. So I was involved in that. But at one point, I was absolutely frustrated because I saw companies were paying millions for tools. And I just know it because I'm an IT nerd and I know those tools. I'm like, hey, I can get all of this for free. I can just download it. So at one point I was so frustrated. I found a system integrator. I was using this type of technologies. I was supporting the management consultancy with doing their projects, retrofitting, etc. So that's also where where the second co-founder came in. So we met there. And we had like a lot of experience there in various industries around the world, from somewhere in the pharmaceutical basement, 30 kilometers far away from Tokyo, to the US, to Italy, basically everywhere. And at one point we realized, hey, it's always the same tools that we use. Grafana, Node-RED, Timescale, Influx. At that point, everyone was laughing at us. But we still decided to, hey, because we've proven it in various industries, it's the same thing. So we put it together and founded a product company, and that's where our third co-founder came in, because we needed some help with the business side. And this is the founding story. So we come from the part of data infrastructure. This is like the core, the open sourcing that we've been doing for years. Then we realized, hey, you need to install it more and more. So there is the device container infrastructure, Kubernetes, provisioning, etc. And now we realize, hey, infrastructure is very good, but engineers want to do it themselves. So we're developing the management console. It's a tool which helps them easier at setting up and managing everything around it.
Okay. Yeah, really interesting to see, right? So, I mean, like, I don't know, but 6 years ago, or when you were founded, you probably wouldn't have thought that nowadays you make a management console, right? So it's always evolving, even for us at the startup or at the company who was founded 6 years ago. So quite the same year. But yeah, it's always interesting to stick to the customer to get the trends of the time, right?
Yeah. And we're slowly getting also to the end. So maybe for our audience who might want to reach out to you, when should they reach out to you? And how can they contact you? What's your typically advice for people that come to you?
Yeah. To answer the when, I mean, if you who is watching the video wants to ask some questions right now, don't hesitate to give a more comprehensive answer. If you feel like stuck in some meaningless initiatives around the company, if you have the problem to manage the local and the global perspectives, or in case you want to have a manageable Industry 4.0 roadmap when it comes to projects and to further develop your company in the next 5 to 10 years, then don't hesitate and contact me, contact us. We are a quite cool team nowadays, so we are very open for discussions, and to answer how, just via phone or LinkedIn. I also have my mobile number on LinkedIn, via mail. Download some of our white papers on our webpage, just to get a first impression maybe. But yeah, maybe we also have a podcast if you're more like the audio type. So just feel free to reach out.
All right. So I link the LinkedIn post to add to the Azure framework, and also link your LinkedIn profile into the video description. So thank you for providing these insights from the scientific and the German manufacturing industry. And dear listeners and viewers, if you think this was helpful, feel free to comment under this video or LinkedIn post or wherever you find it, and provide us your feedback. We already talked about how you can contact Jack, so I'll link it in the video description. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jeremy. It was fun.